And welcome to the Friday pre-Memorial Day weekend edition of the Malzberg Show. As you can see, Steve's not here today. He's out with some well-deserved family time as he celebrates Memorial Day weekend. I'm Rick Unger filling in. We want to begin by showing you a little bit of film that we're going to talk about in just a moment. Now what you're seeing there are some archaeological ruins that are more valuable than I can begin to explain to you. This is in Palmyra in Syria, and those ruins that you just saw a film of are in danger of being destroyed by ISIS, who has taken over that town literally within a matter of hours. Here to talk about this and a whole lot more is our friend Jonathan T. Gilliam, former Navy SEAL, FBI agent, president of U.S. Continued Service, and a guy who looks really good in a goatee.
That's right. You should shave your head.
You think I should? I don't know if it's me, man. So what do we do about this? We are literally hours away from some of the greatest archaeological sites on the planet being destroyed by these people. What can we do?
Well, we can't do anything. Can't do anything. What's going to happen. I think because we are not in the fight. I mean, that's the reality of this. I mean, when you say we, according to the Department of Defense, according to the administration, we have very little part in this fight. We gave it over to the Iraqis, and we see what happens when you give it over to certain groups. You know, there's video, and we're going to be showing some during the show, of the meeting that took place between the Prime Minister of Iraq and the President, really just a couple of weeks ago in the White House, where the President actually sits there and tells us how well things are going in Iraq in the fight against ISIS, only to see this week what happens. Ramadi falls to ISIS. What do we do? I think the time has got to have arrived now where we stop with the blaming and we start with the solutions. Even somebody like myself, who tends to be supportive of the Obama administration, recognizes whatever strategy we have or had didn't work. Time to move on. Well, I can't figure out if this is just incompetence in war planning. And if that's the case, then you look at the cabinet members that are along the ride for the ride with Obama. His, the people in national security, the people that really are even at the top of the DoD that are advising the president. Are they in touch with the reality of this entire global fight that's going on?
I understand.
That's the first part.
But that's blame stuff. What do we do now?
So the other, and that's what I'm getting to. The other problem is, what if this is by design? What if they want, the reality of the plan of the administration is to let this stuff fall and then either go in or not go in? That's where I think that...
To what benefit?
Well, that's what I'm confused about.
Well,
because
I think that's probably a little conspiratorial.
Well,
I suppose anything's possible, but I doubt that.
But when you ask the question, what can we do? That's what I have to first ask is, what is being done? Well, is it incompetence? If that's the case, then we need to get a complete war plan. If it's
let's assume it was a strategy that just didn't work.
Right.
So it's time to move on to a new strategy. I mean, we're flying very few sorties, from what I understand, over the Anbar province right now. Not enough to make any difference. So you have to look at it and say, okay, more has to be done. Does more involve turning to our allies in the region and saying to the Saudis, the Qataris, anybody who is a Sunni nation and likely to be our ally there, do we let them put their boots on the ground? Do we put our boots on the ground, either with them or in place of them? Where do we make the right move here?
Well, I am of the mindset that we need to have a coalition of world governments going in there together to strike and just pretty much eradicate all this chaos that's coming out of the Middle East. The problem with emboldening the other side is that you have a civil war going on there, but at the same time you have places like, countries like Iran that are a real problem. So if you embolden one side versus the other, basically you're giving a leg up on this this problem that they have over there, and both sides are corrupted and both sides are extremely dangerous, and that's the problem.
Yet we're actually looking to Iran to do some of this for us. We're looking towards Shia militias to go into Ramadi to take on ISIL at this point. Well, we know who that is. That is Iran. How can that have a happy ending?
I don't think it can.
It can't.
That's the problem is, no, first off, and I know this sounds like a very egotistical statement from a military standpoint, but nobody fights like we do. This is our modern era. We're the warriors in this era, in the world powers. We need to take the lead, but we also need to incorporate all the Western countries that are being affected by this. The Middle East has this Shia and Sunni civil war that's going on that's 1,400 years old.
Right.
But at the same time, there is a global movement that's going on, and all the stuff that's happening in the Middle East is infecting the rest of the country, or the rest of the world, like a cancer. The world needs to get a hold on this, just like they got a hold on Hitler, and they need to go in there and solve it. If we leave it up to them, it will not be fixed. It just will not be fixed.
How do we deal with this? There's a couple of polls out this week that reach different conclusions. One of the polls suggests that the American people are still not particularly keen on American boots on the ground over there. Another poll shows that Americans are warming to the idea. Mm-hmm. What can the president, the Congress, what can leadership do to behave like leaders? If the strategy is such that we determine, you know what, we can send our allies in that region in there till the cows come home, you just can't do it without the United States.
Right.
How do they explain to the American public that, like it or not, this is something we need to do?
Well, the thing I like about you, Rick, is that you're a solutions-based thinker, as so am I. And when you have solution-based thinkers, it doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative. You're going to usually come to a good conclusion. First and foremost, we need solutions-based leaders. Twitter will teach you that polls and opinions are varied, and you cannot necessarily go on the opinions of people who are not in the fight. Right. If you're a leader, you have to make a decision, and you have to stick with that decision.
But you also have to convince the people you lead.
But here's what I found about leading. When you have a fact-based solution and you have a plan that's based on that solution, the people will get behind you. They may not like it, but they will see in the end that this is what had to be done.
It's the right thing to be done.
There's none of that. It's appeasement across the board.
I understand. Let me turn to another issue with ISIS, who is now claiming that they will have, or they could buy, a nuclear weapon from Pakistan within 12 months.
Well, look, you could have said 12 months ago that ISIS, the likelihood of ISIS having ground combat units inside the United States is slim to none. Look what's happened.
Well, what has happened?
Well, there's well over 70 people here that could start a sustained ground combat
well, 70
fight
people
here.
Aren't going to really start a sustained. I mean, how long are 70 people?
Well, when we talk about 70, that's a low estimate, a very low estimate. And when we talk about 70, we're talking about force multipliers that could go out and train and recruit 100 people and then train them. So 70 could be 700. We don't know. We don't have a good a fact on that. And so, basically, the possibility is there. But here's where the State Department can do a lot of good in reaching out to Pakistan and also the DoD and saying, listen, and again, solutions-based thinking. If anybody gives these people a nuclear weapon or sells these people a nuclear weapon, they're done. They're absolutely done.
They are.
I mean,
that's right.
the United States
we're
has
going to know. If that were to happen, we're going to know where it came from.
We're going to know, and we're going to have to start laying the law down, not drawing fake lines in the sand in Syria, not saying, years later that, oops, we shouldn't have done this.
Right.
We need to start being proactive and stop being reactive.
So let me go to another area. We'll move beyond ISIS and go to Bin Laden, of all people.
Right.
Lots of interesting news there this week as we discover what we could call the treasure trove of goods that came out of the raid and
right.
what led to the death of Bin Laden. Have you had a chance to go through that? And we have a short amount of time. What do you think? Is it worth anything to us?
I think the stuff that you're not seeing, you're not going to see the stuff that was the real treasure trove. That's the good stuff. I think this stuff is very enlightening, and it shows that he was dead set on a regional confrontation and a regional domination before he went to global. What we see with ISIS now is that they're striving for global domination.
Right.
And I think Bin Laden was set on big attacks to keep the Western world out of the Middle East.
Jonathan Gilliam, always fun to talk to you.
Good to be here. Always.
It depresses me a little bit when we talk, but it's always useful information. Thanks for coming. Come back soon.
Always.
Okay, coming up next, we have the senior political analyst from the Washington Examiner. Michael Rowan's going to be here to talk about the events of the week, maybe even a little bit about his new book that's coming out. I've had a look at it. I recommend it. You're going to want to hear what Michael has to say, and we'll do that right after this.